Hey guys, welcome to another weekly focus. So it's been about 2 to 3 weeks and I hadn't taken any trades, but this week I had a couple of trades and I'm going to show you guys. So let's see, let me pull this up right here. All right, cool. So let's start with the gold one. So I had a trade on gold, so I took a sell on gold. So looking at this right here, I had this sell opportunity. So the intention for me on this trade was to take the sells and see price move to the downside. And once we complete with the sells, I was expecting prices to then move to the upside, and that's why I had this right here. So with the sell position, I took a loss on this. So I accounted for this. That's a -1 on gold. And I think I had another one on NAS100. So NAS100, same thing. And because looking at the analysis from last week, I was expecting the DXY to move to the upside. So most of my positions, I was looking for selling opportunities. So this one was on NAS100. So this is what I was looking at. So an inability for prices to go through this area, I was looking for these sells, and the intention again was to take prices to this trend line here, which is a trend line on the higher time frame, and we can then take buys again to the upside. So this is currently playing out right now. So I still have this position on NAS100. I haven't closed it, I haven't moved my stops to break even, so it's still playing right now and I haven't touched it. And the S&P 500 as well. So let's look at the S&P 500. Same thing with the S&P 500, and this is the same analysis I showed you guys last week. So the S&P 500 is same thing. I'm expecting prices to drop to the downside, then we can take buys again to the upside. So this is currently playing out. I haven't touched it, I haven't moved my stops to break even, so I'm still looking at this position right here. So one on US30. So I had trades on almost all the pairs, so gold, US30, NAS, and the S&P. And I'm trading this on different accounts, so it's quite easy for me to manage them. So on US30, if you remember from last week, I said if we could see, let's say, pull back to an area like this, then no, I pull back to an area like this, I could take those sells, and I didn't take these sells coming to the downside, but then I saw this opportunity to take the buys again to the upside. So I had my buy position right here and I got stopped out on this one. So you're looking at this, it's a -1 on US30. So gold is a -1, US30 is a -1. The S&P 500 is currently playing out, NAS is currently playing out. And if you know the word trade NAS on the S&P 500, if I see a trade on the S&P 500, it's almost likely that I'll see a trade on NAS100 as well, because those two pairs move really similar to each other. So that's it for me when it comes to the trades for this week. And let's go so I can show you guys the main thing for today. So we'll look at the DXY again. The DXY is the first thing we look at. And last week, so this is like my stuff from multiple time frames, and I have the monthly, weekly, daily, the 8 hours and stuff like this. So normally, if you can analyze the DXY correctly, it makes it completely easy for you to analyze other pairs. So this right here is my stuff is the DXY on multiple time frames. But what I like to do is starting from the daily time frame. You can always look at higher time frames, but the highest time frame I look at is always the daily, in as much as you have like the monthly and the weekly here. It's just as a reference point thing, but the highest time frame I like to look at is a daily time frame. So let's start with the DXY on the daily time frame, and I'll show you guys what we're looking at. So from last week, we analyzed this already. Where is price at and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? So I'm going to put this right here. So we're looking at this piece right here, and I'll come back to that area, but let's look at this from a bigger picture thing. So how is price moving on this pair? You have an impulse, you have a correction, price takes off from there, there's an impulse, there's a correction, and price took off from an area like this. Now if you look at this from the daily time frame and you're looking at this big picture thing, sometimes it's very difficult for you to understand what price is doing, and you have to dial down to, let's say, the minor structures within the bigger structure thing. So if we're looking at the minor structure, then this is the area we're paying attention to, this piece of price action right here. Now price is currently sat between 110 and 100 flat. So how do we move from an area like this to lower time frame? So I'm going to zoom in on this area so we can see what's happening. Now this is on the daily time frame, and if you have price like this on the daily time frame, it means it's a lot of data you're dealing with. So what's the psychological level we're working with? We have 110 and we have 100 flat. So price is currently between these two levels. Now we had an impulsive move to the upside. Price was taking out these highs, price was taking out these highs. We had a violation and price put in a structural high right here. So we have this piece right here. Now looking at this, from last week I said I was expecting prices to move to the upside, and my analysis remains the same. So the bias for me remains the same. What I was looking at last week was a potential movement to the upside from an area like this, because we took out these lows, and I explained this already. The fact that you're taking out a low doesn't mean price is moving to the downside. So if you have price moving to the upside like this and you get a violation, it doesn't mean this price is now headed to the downside, because sometimes you see price struggling to test this area and even going higher. So there's a possibility that something like this can still happen. So once you have this understanding, and the way I look at prices using psychological levels and the trend lines, I'm going to take this off. So using psychological levels and trend lines, if you take this off and you look at this piece of price action, there is still a possibility for prices to test these highs right here and for price to test an area like this. So because of this, I still have this bias that the DXY is going to move to the upside. Now if the DXY is moving to the upside, what level is the DXY going to test? I'm looking at an area like 110, which is a psychological level right here. I'm looking at these highs and I'm looking at areas like this. So once you move to lower time frames, you see, so I can edit this again. The analysis remains the same. I'm not flipping it. I'm just going to move this around. So let's put this right here. So same thing. I'm still expecting the DXY to move to the upside. So that's it right there. That's my analysis. And when you look at this on the daily time frame, once you do your analysis like this, it's very easy. So yes, we had these sales that came to the downside. So this piece right here. So we had these sales right here. We had price coming to the downside, and that's what happened during the week. You had a minor push to the upside, then you had the sales, but this is everything that happened during the week. Now when you look at these sales that came in, look at the other pairs. Look at gold, look at NAS, look at S&P, look at US30. You didn't have an impulsive buy to the upside. You had, let's say, a minor buy to the upside, and then the price started crashing. So that just tells you this sales right here is not something I'm going to pay attention to, because I still have this bias to the upside as my primary bias on the DXY. So this is what I'm looking at on the daily time frame. Now you can step down to lower time frames. Let's say the 8-hour time frame. Now we don't trade the DXY, but this is something I was explaining. So we don't trade the DXY, but this is something I was explaining last week. If I had to buy the DXY, I'll be looking for something like this. So I was waiting for, let's say, I'm going to show you. You have price coming down. This is, let's say, high. This is a low. This is a high. This is a low. This right here is a high, and this is a low. So once you see an inability from the DXY to move to the downside, so price has made a low right here, an inability for prices to make further lows, then you could see this pair moving to the upside. So what you're looking at an area like this, so let's take this out, and I'm going to put this, I'm going to move this to the corner. So let's put this right here. So what we're looking at on the DXY is some movement. Let's say you're waiting for this pullback. Once you see this inability of a price to move to the downside, it might give you a consolidation thing, but then that's what you're looking for. So if you see something like this, that inability for prices to move to the downside, then you're looking for these buying opportunities again on the DXY to take prices to the upside. So when it comes to the DXY, my analysis remains the same, and I haven't switched my bias on the DXY. I'm still expecting prices to move to the upside. So that's it right there. So let's take out this one right here, and I'm going to use this because it just shows you exactly what I'm looking for. So you get a pullback. Now I'm going to explain this again. You had this area, you had this lows, you had this, and stuff like this. Once you get a pullback and there's that inability for prices to move to the downside, this is an early indication that there's a possibility for prices to move again to the upside. So this is something I'll pay attention to. If I see something like this, if I see this inability for prices to move to the downside, then I'm expecting the DXY to move again to the upside to test 110, to take out this area and to take out this highs right here. So that's my analysis on the DXY. Again, you can move to lower time frames. You can look at the 4 hours, you can look at the hourly. It's not going to change it a lot. So if you look at the 4-hour time frame, so it's just the same thing we're looking at, the same area we're looking at these highs right here, we're looking at these highs, and we're looking at this psychological level. So price is currently trading between these two psychological levels, 110 and 100 flat. Where is price most likely going to gravitate to? An inability for prices to make further lows, we should expect prices to gravitate towards the psychological level of 110, taking out this area and taking out this area. So that's my analysis on the DXY. You can look at this on the hourly time frame as well, but looking at what's happening on the daily time frame, if you move back to the daily time frame, so looking at this on the daily time frame, I just want to stay on the daily time frame, or let's say the daily, the 8 hours, and somewhat the 4-hour time frame, because the lower you go, the more noise you've seen, and it becomes completely difficult. So look at this piece of price action. You cannot take away this one right here. So price has been moving to the upside. That's an impulsive move to the upside. You had a violation, you had this highs created and stuff like this. Where is price most likely going to gravitate to once you have this piece of price action? And this is, I think this is a structure I've explained multiple times. Once you have an impulsive move like this and you get a violation, it doesn't mean price is just selling. Price is going to manipulate, is going to do certain things before you see the sales coming in. So personally, once I have the sales, I like giving the buyers another attempt. So let's see if they can make another push again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking at right here. If there's a possibility for the guys who did these buys from an area like this to an area like this, is there a possibility for these guys to take prices again to 110? So you need to give the buyers another attempt. So let's say, I'm going to clean this. So let's say the buyers come in to an area like this, and there's an inability for prices to go past an area like this, and you see a consolidation or an inability right here, then you might see sellers coming in again. And that's how you start building your thesis. That's how you start looking at price and start understanding the different patterns it can give you and the different variations it can give you. So in as much as I'm expecting prices to move to 110, price can get to an area like this and there's an inability, and you see price collapsing, or you see the drop coming in on the DXY. Now if something like this happens, then my bias is going to change. I'm going to expect sales to come in. Now temporal sales, just depending on the structure thing again. But this is what I'm looking at right now. I'm going to clean this. So same thing, I'm looking for this inability for sellers to take prices lower, and I'm expecting prices to move again to the upside. And this is something I showed you guys already on the 8-hour time frame. So if you step here, so this is it. So this is what we're looking at. So I'm going to keep this on the chart and we'll watch this coming into next week. Now, an easy way for you to look at this, you can put a trend line here, and that's why I always tell you guys, you're looking at psychological levels. That's the first principle. Now the psych levels is just there to help you with a directional bias thing. So an inability of a price to go through one level, I'm expecting prices to go to the next level, and that's how I use the psychological levels. So when you have trend lines, you use these trend lines as a guide, so it can help you. So I'm going to make this visible. So this on the 8-hour time frame. Now look at this. Now the trend line is a guide. It shows you where price is respecting, and if you get a violation of that, it tells you what to expect from a movement thing like that. So you're looking at price coming down. So let's keep this trend line, and I'll just put this trend line on the chart and we'll look at it next week again. So looking at this trend line, price is moving to the downside. It made a low, there was a high, there was a low. Price respected this area of the trend line and it took out this area and it made a low. So normally, once price gets back to an area like this, you're expecting prices to then move again to the downside. And that's why I say, once you see this inability right here for prices to move to the downside, you should expect a violation of this test of this area, and you expect prices to move to the upside. That's why I had this piece, like I had this little diagram thing right here. It's just you looking at how price is moving, and inability for prices to go through or make further lows. You see the trend line getting violated. You see this hesitation right here. You see this hesitation right here, this difficulty. Sometimes you see it clearly, sometimes you don't see it, like it doesn't print properly, but you can tell. So if you see this inability, or let's say you get a break, you get a violation, you get a test, you should expect prices to then gravitate to the upside. And that's my analysis on the DXY. So it makes it completely easy once you start looking at prices like this. So I need to see the buyers coming in one more time. I need to see the buyers taking prices again to the upside. So a further attempt from the buyers and an inability, then I'll say sellers are coming in. But then you can see a pullback and you see prices moving again to the upside. So it's a lot that can happen, but then let's deal with this piece right here and see how price is going to deliver. So that's my analysis on the DXY. So we'll keep this schematic right here and we'll see how this plays out coming into next week. So let's look at the first pair. All right, the first pair we're looking at is US30, and as usual, let's start from the daily time frame and I'll show you guys. Remember, I had a loss on US30, so I took the buys on US30, and I'm going to show you guys really quick on the hourly time frame. We'll come back to the daily, but let's look at the hourly for a minute. So you guys remember we had this position right here, and I was looking for these sells. This was the first one, and I was looking for possibilities of prices to get here so I can take sales again. So I didn't like the setup around an area like this because price didn't give me the setup I was looking for. So I didn't take the sales and I went in for the buys around an area like this. So we'll look at this. So I'll start from the daily time frame and then we'll work our way down. So look at this on the daily time frame. How is price moving? And this is something we've been looking at. So how is price moving? Where is price at? Where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Is there a psychological level you can work with, and is there a trend line you can work with? So this is quite simple on the daily time frame right now. So look at the structure. Prices made the high, there was a consolidation, next impulsive move or your swing move. Price pulled back and you had another move to the upside, and inability of prices to take out these highs, and we're coming back to this trend line. So the pivot point already was set. So once you're looking at the trend line, you're just waiting for prices to come back to the pivot point so you can take the next swing move. So this is what you're looking at on the daily time frame. What's the psychological level I'm paying attention to? You have 45,000 and you have 40,000 flat. So an inability of prices to go through 45,000. I think we said this last week. You're expecting a pullback to an area like this. So I had this intention to take the buys, maybe to test this area and then push it again to the downside. So it didn't work and I took a -1 on US30. So let's put this, let's make it clean. Keep this fixated on the chart. Let me put this on the 8-hour time frame. So that's on the daily. All right, that's cool. So we're looking at this on the daily time frame. So once you see how price is moving, keep your charts clean and keep your analysis very simple. There was an inability for prices to go through the psychological level. So where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Price should normally move back to 40,000, but there is a trend line here. So if you take a sell, or if you took the sells, you should expect prices to at least test this area right here. Now an inability for prices to go through this area, you're expecting prices to move again to the upside. So once I look at the daily time frame, that's my analysis on the daily time frame. So the bigger picture thing is, you have this move, there's a pullback. You have this move, there's an inability around an area like this. So what you're expecting is for prices to then drop to an area like this. And sometimes you might see price testing these lows right here. Sorry if you're getting some background noise. I'm really recording this video like really late in the day. So there's a lot of noise because neighbors and stuff, they're just moving stuff around. So normally this is how the ranges start forming. So once you have price moving to the upside, you can see some kind of a range like this, and you then see price moving again to the upside like this. So this is something to pay attention to. And you're looking at this movement right here. There is this and this. So price can come lower, testing this area, and you might see a movement thing like this. When you look at this area and you look at this, it's price just giving you a range. So sometimes you can look at the bigger picture thing, and sometimes you can dial in and look at individual structures. So let's step down to the 8-hour time frame, and I'll break down this structure right here. So you step down to the 8-hour time frame, and this is what we're looking at right here. Now this is like really good. So last week, this is what I was expecting. I was expecting this violation right here. So there's a minor trend line right here. So I was expecting a violation of this, a further test of an area like this, so you can then take this sales to the downside. I didn't get the proper setup I was looking for within an area like this, so I didn't take the sales. Now once I didn't take the sales and I saw price hovering around an area like this, I was looking for this buys again to have a test of this area and to have a test of this trend line, so we can take prices lower again. So it failed. It backfired on me at that point. So this is what I'm looking at on the 8-hour time frame. It's the same what you're looking at on the daily. You're expecting this sales to come in, and in a belief of prices to go through this area, you're expecting the buyers to step in again. Now there's a possibility you might see this prices going lower than this. So you might see this prices testing an area like this, which is still fine. So it doesn't change the overall structure. It doesn't mean a violation of this trend line. You're expecting prices to then move to the downside completely. So price can give you a very complex structure, and that's what I was trying to explain to you guys on the daily time frame. So if you look at this on the daily time frame, there is a possibility for prices to, hold on, I'm gonna take this out. Yeah, so there's a possibility for prices to get to an area like this and you see buyers reacting. There's still a possibility for prices to test this lows, so you might see price coming back, testing this lows. Then there's an inability for price to go through this area, and you see prices moving again to the upside. So these are all possibilities, and you need to get prepared with what price is showing you. So those are two possibilities I'm looking at right now. So I'm going to take this out and we can stick with this piece right here. So let's see how price moves to this trend line. You wait and you look for this inability. If you see the inability, then you can take prices again to the upside. So once you have a movement thing like this, impulse, correction, impulse, price coming back, every time price pulls back to an area like this, you're considering this point as a pivot point. So if price comes back to the pivot point, you're expecting a movement again to the upside. So that's something I'm paying attention to right here. So I'm going to clean this. So you can step down to the 8-hour time frame and look at the same thing. I explained this already. So let's look at the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, this is what I'm looking at. So how is price moving to the downside? If price gives us, let's say, a corrective move, I'll keep this yeah, let's keep this on the 4-hour time frame. I'll keep this on the 8-hour time frame. Keep this on the 8-hour time frame. Cool. So if price gives you a corrective move, so you're looking at this movement right here. So all you have to do is watch how this price is coming, and an inability, then you want to take prices again to the upside. So this is something I'll pay attention to on the 4-hour time frame and on the hourly time frame. And again, you need to let price do its thing. You need to let the sellers do the thing. And if you're looking for buys, you need to fit the sells. Once you see this inability from the sellers, then you can take prices again to the upside. And that's what I've explained already on the daily time frame. So this is it right here. So once it comes to my analysis on US30 and what I'm looking for, because I took a loss on US30 already, I'm just going to sit aside and watch how price is moving to the downside. Look at the 4-hour time frame and most likely the hourly time frame. Cool. So let's look at the hourly time frame real quick. So if you took these sales, you probably will have made, let's say, 4.6% already. You should have been up maybe 4%, because we was looking at these sales at around an area like this. So if you took the sales around an area like this, yes, you had this little consolidation thing right here, but then you had price moving to the downside. So I didn't take the sales, and again, I didn't take the sales because the setup I was looking for, it didn't happen. I was expecting prices to push a little bit, let's say, to the upside, then I can take the sell. So right now I'll clean this and I'll take this out. and I was also expecting prices to move. So there was a trend line thing right here. If price respected this trend line, I'll have looked for sales off of this psychological level and stuff like this. So it didn't happen. So let's take this one out as well and take this one out. So this right here is a sell, is a buy I took. So I took the buys from here, and I was expecting prices to take out this area, have a test of this, so I can take sales again to the downside. So this was a -1 thing. I explained this already. So let's take this off. And this is what we're looking at now on US30. Now this is very beautiful and it makes it completely easy. So look at this structure right here. So this is the structure we're looking at. You have an impulsive move to the upside. You have this violation. Now there's an inability. You've seen the inability for prices to go through 45,000. You're expecting a further push to an area like this, an inability. Then you want to take prices again to the upside. And the reason I'm saying this, you need to look at the bigger picture thing. What's the daily time frame telling you? You can look at this on the daily time frame. You can look at this on the weekly time frame. US30 is moving to the upside, is still bullish. So when you take the sells, it's like a temporal sell thing, but once you take the buys, it's a continuation move. So if you're looking at the buys on this pair, so let's look at something like this. So remember guys, once you have a trend line that gets violated, I explained this, price is going to do its thing and it's going to deliver again to the higher time frame trend line. You wait for the pivot point and you're looking for buying opportunities off of that. So what I'm looking at right now is, let's say, I just want to see price coming down. Let's see the movement thing to the downside. And you get this movement, you get that inability, and you're looking for prices to move again to the upside. So if I had to trade US30, this is what I'll be looking for on US30. Let's say I'm looking for buys on US30, something like this. I'm looking for this buys on US30. So this may be like a 1:7. So something like this. Now, if you see something like this, there's a possibility this can make new highs as well. And there's a possibility, if we're wrong on this analysis, price is going to breach through the trend line and it's going to deliver on the next time frame. And that could be the weekly time frame. And that's something I'm looking at right now as well. So this is what I'm looking at on the hourly time frame. If we get this sales coming to the downside, what you're looking for, you just want to fit these sales. As the sales are coming in, you want to fit the sales on inability, then you're looking for the buys again to the upside. So that's my analysis on US30. Let's see how this plays out. I'm gonna, let's say, be a little bit patient and wait for the sellers to come in. Once the sellers are done doing the thing, then I'll see if the buyers are still interested in this pair and I'll look for this buying opportunity. So let's keep this on the hourly and take this off the 8 hour. So keep this on the hourly. So this is it right here. This is what we're looking for on US30. It's not very difficult. An inability for price to go through 45,000. You're expecting prices to test 40,000, but there is a trend line, this trend line right here. So what you want to see, you want to fit the sales coming in, an inability for prices to go through this area, and then you want to take prices again to the upside. So that's it. Now guys, there's also a possibility you might see these prices hovering around an area like this, and you might see an inability for prices to come back to test this trend line, and you could see the price moving again to the upside. So that's a possibility. So what you're looking for, sometimes it doesn't happen. So I'm waiting for these prices to test this trend line, and sometimes price might hover around an area like this and you see price moving again to the upside. So those are all possibilities. If it happens like that, then I'll check and see if I have a setup within this area and to see if I can take those buys again to the upside. Now the best buys has to be the one that comes back to an area like this. You look for that inability, you look for your setup criteria or your entry criteria, then you take prices to the upside. Now if you're taking buys off of an area like this, it's still a possibility, but this is risk, like the risk involved in this is higher compared to this. So it's riskier taking those buys from here compared to an area like this. Alright guys, so that's it for me on US30, and let's look at the next pair. Alright guys, so the next pair is NAS100, and again I apologize for the background noise. I'm really recording this video like really late in the day. So we're looking at NAS100. So this, the weekly time frame, the daily, the 8 hours, and the 4-hour time frame. So that's fine, but let's start from the daily time frame. So this NAS on the daily time frame. So what we're looking at, where is price at? Where is price most likely going to gravitate to? And I explained this last week, and it's the same thing. So once you have your price like this on the daily time frame, it's very important for you to look at the overall structure and see how price is moving. Just look at this. So price gives you an impulsive move, there's a pullback, there's an impulse or a swing move, there's a pullback, and there's another impulse, there's a consolidation. So you should expect prices at some point to test an area like this, and you see price moving again to the upside. So this is what you're looking at, this is what you're expecting on the daily time frame. So you're expecting these prices. So look at this, we had this inability right here. I'm gonna make this stake on the chart, so give me a second. So you had this movement thing, so you had a swing move right here, there was a pullback, and there was an inability for prices to go through an area like this. So last week I said that if you see an inability for prices to go through this area, then you're expecting prices to sell back to this trend line, so you can take the buys again to the upside. So the bigger picture move on NAS100 is for price to pull back to this trend line, so we can take the buys. Now you need to ask yourself certain questions. Where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Price is currently trading between 20,000 and 25,000. We went through 20,000. You look at it, we went through this area and we haven't tested 25,000. I think we're just close to midway of the move, and we've seen this inability. So once you see something like this, wait for prices to come back so you can take the buys again. Now in the meantime, if you understand how price is moving, and if you understand the structure and everything, you can step down to the 8-hour time frame and look at this piece right here. So I explained this last week. So this is on the 8-hour time frame. Now there's a trend line thing I was talking about last week. So you see price moving, making stuff like this, you see price moving, doing stuff like this. Price makes another high, and you're expecting prices to pull back to an area like this, and for price to move again to the upside. Now this is my thought process on how I took this sales on NAS100. So price pulled back to an area like this. I'll probably step down to the 4-hour time frame or the hourly time frame and show you guys. So let's step down to the 4-hour time frame. So I'm going to show you. So how was price moving? So you have this lows right here, you have this highs, there's a low, there's somewhat a high right here, and price made a low, and there's a high. So normally you're expecting prices to make this lows, and you're expecting prices to then move to the upside. So while looking at this, price actually tested this trend line. There was an inability for those prices. There was an inability for those prices to make further highs, and then you're expecting prices to then move to the downside. Now with this piece right here, I think I had my sales already at an area like this, and that's because there's a different setup I was looking at, and this setup has to do with taking out trend lines. So hold on, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if you have price moving to the upside and it's giving you higher highs and higher lows like this, there's certain setups you can look at that tells you when the trend line is going to get violated. So you're looking at this piece right here. So there's certain setups I'm working on right now that tells you when the trend line can actually get violated, and so that's why I got in on those sales a little bit early compared to actually waiting for this trend line to get violated so I can take the sales. So that's something I'm currently playing with. So I have the sales already on NAS100, but the overall picture thing is what's very important. Look at this from the daily time frame, and this is something you could do as well. It's not a complex entry. So you're looking at a swing move right here. So price gives you the swing move, there's a consolidation, there's an inability for prices to move to the upside. There's a minor trend line thing right here, and that inability again for price to move to the upside. You could use something like that and take the sales again to the downside. Once price gets to an area like this, if it sells to an area like this, an inability for prices to go through this trend line, you might see a spike and a test of this psychological level. That's still a possibility, but once price pulls back to an area like this, you're looking for further buys again to the upside. So that's what I was looking on the daily time frame. So why taking the sales? I know the bigger move thing for me is to take the buys. So I'm taking this sales as a temporal move, and that's why you look at this on the 8-hour time frame. You look at this on the 4-hour time frame, and most likely once you step down to the hourly. So the hourly time frame is just my entry time frame. So I had my entries right here, sat through this period, price pushed, came back. So that inability right there, so you had this bounce, there was this move, inability for prices to take out these highs. So the best spot for you to probably go in is probably an area like this. Then you can take those sales. So I came in a little bit too early. So that's it right now. So you have this sales playing out currently. So let's step back to the 4-hour time frame. So how do you get involved in a situation like this? So if you didn't take the sales, what you can do is sit on your hands and wait for prices to deliver back to this trend line thing. So you're waiting for prices to then drop to an area like this, an inability for prices to go through this area, and you're looking for buys again to the upside. I think I showed you guys this on the daily time frame. So this is it. So this is what we're looking on the daily time frame, and this is the bigger picture thing for me on NAS100. So what am I taking these prices to? So we're looking at this 25,000. So yeah, this is the move we're looking at on NAS100, because this move alone is like 1:10. So if you see prices coming back to an area like this, if you see prices coming back to an area like this, an inability for prices to go through this area, then we're expecting these prices to then move back to the upside. Now this has to align with what's happening on the DXY. So once we get prices at an area like this, you want to look at the DXY and ask yourself, is the DXY moving to the downside? So you have to wait and make sure everything aligns properly. So if the DXY starts moving to the downside, then you can look for these buying opportunities to take prices to the upside. So it makes it completely easy once you understand what you're looking for and what you're paying attention to. So I'm currently starting these sales. Let's see how far we can take the sales to the downside, because sometimes you might get a sell like this and it gets to, let's say, an area like this, and there's an inability for these sales to move again lower, and you see buyers stepping in again. So one thing about price, it's very complex and it's very confusing sometimes, and it's dynamic, so it changes every now and then. In as much as we're looking at patterns, we're looking at, let's say, patterns for entries and patterns for continuations and stuff like that. Price is still going to do what it wants to do, and sometimes it throws you off balance and it does something completely different. So I'm going to hold the sales. So I'll hold these sales and see what's happening. So my anticipation and what I'm expecting is for prices to actually move to the downside, giving us a test of this area so we can take the buys again to the upside. So that's it for me on NAS100. I think is pretty straightforward, and we'll look at the next pair. Alright guys, so the next pair is the S&P500, and if you remember, if I have a trade, let's say on NAS100, you'll most likely see the same trade on the S&P500. It's just the way I look at these pairs. So again, I have this on the weekly time frame just as a reference, but the first time frame we look at is the daily time frame. I'll come back to show you guys what we're looking at right here. So let's look at the daily time frame really quick. So you can do all your analysis on the daily time frame. If you understand what's happening on the daily time frame, you don't really have to look at the weekly and the monthly. So every now and then you can look at the weekly and the monthly as a reference to see what price is doing. And if you have a violation of a daily trend line, you most likely want to look at the weekly time frame. But currently we still have this trend line intact. So this is what we're looking at structure wise. Impulse. So you have an impulse move. You have price correcting like this. You have another impulse or a swing move. You had price pulling back to an area like this. It didn't really test this trend line properly, and you had price moving again to the upside. So just looking at this, my analysis on this was very simple. So I'm going to do something like this. Where is price at, and where is price most likely going to gravitate to? Are there any psychological levels you can play with? So now let's look at this. The psychological level thing I was playing with was 6,000 and 6,500. So the S&P 500 is most likely going to make new highs, and the S&P 500 is most likely going to test 6,500. So looking at this on the daily time frame, you can tell from the way the price is moving. Now you have an impulse, you have a correction thing, you have an impulse, or there's a swing move, and you get a correction. So every time price comes back to this trend line, you're looking at the pivot point being set, you're looking for that inability for price to go through this trend line, and you want to take a continuation move to the upside. That's how price move. An inability for this to happen, then you see a violation, the test of this, and you see price delivering to 5,500. But the sales is not what we're looking at. So long term, we're looking for the buys to 6,500. Short term, we're looking for the sales to an area like this. Now, there's certain reasons why we took the sales on this pair. Now, the first one is we were expecting prices to test this psychological level right here of 6,000. So if the sales is coming in, you most likely want to see the sales testing 6,000, and you want to see a test of this trend line. So this alone is what we was looking at, and for prices to move again to the upside. So 6,500 is a target thing for us on the S&P 500. So you look at this on the daily time frame. Where is price at? And where is price most likely going to gravitate to? On the daily time frame, you have the psychological level right here of 6,000. Price went through and is coming back to test it multiple times. So if price has a test of this area multiple times, and there's an inability for price to go below 6,000, for price to go below 6,000 and stay below 6,000, if you get a test of an area like this and you see price coming back above this, testing this again, it just tells you there's an inability for price to go through 6,000. Use this area as your point of interest, and then you're expecting prices to then gravitate to the next side, to the next psychological level, which is 6,500. And again, I always say this is just common sense. An inability for price to go through one level, you're expecting the delivery to the next level. It's the same thing with trend lines. If price violates one trend line, let's say on the 4-hour time frame, you want to look for the next trend line on the 8-hour time frame, so you have a lower time frame delivery to the higher time frame. With psychological levels, it's straightforward. An inability for price to go through one level, you're expecting the price to deliver to the next level. So that's what we're looking on the daily time frame. Now you can step down to the 8-hour time frame. So this is what we're looking at. So the bigger picture thing again on the S&P 500 is for us to take the buys. So I'm going to move this to the corner. So let's move this right here. So we're expecting this buys again on the S&P 500. So while we're expecting the buys, while waiting for the buys to come, or for the buyers to step in, you can take the sells, and that's what we did with this position right here. So I was looking for these sells. So the thought process again is quite easy. It's not that complex. There's an impulse, there's a test of the psychological level, and you could see the buyers coming in. So I was watching this area right here. We took out these highs, but it wasn't impulsive. It was a shallow takeout of an area like this. And at the same time, remember, we was looking at the DXY, and we was expecting these prices to move to the upside. So because I was expecting the DXY to move to the upside, and I saw this inability for for the S&P 500 and NAS100 to make new highs impulsively, I was then looking for sales to then take prices to the downside. So you can look at this on the 4-hour time frame, for example. So you're looking at this on the 4-hour time frame. So look at this piece right here. You get an impulse, you get price correcting. You get an impulse, you get price correcting. You get a correction, but then there's an inability for prices to move to the upside. So let's get the crash again to the downside, and then we'll look for prices to move again to the upside. So that's my thought process on the S&P 500. So I'm currently sat in the sells, and I just want to see how this sells, or the sellers are going to deliver prices to the next trend line thing. So you can look at this. So let's take this out so it's cleaner. So let's look at this. So you have a minor trend line thing here. Price is moving to the upside, making lows, price moves to the upside. You're expecting this, and for price to make new highs. Inability, let's get the delivery to the next trend line. An inability, then you want to take prices again to the upside. So that's my analysis on the S&P 500. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It's not a complex principle, it's not a complex concept I'm using. It's a pretty straightforward concept thing. Now, why are you looking at this, and why you're expecting prices to, let's say, move to an area like this and for you to take the buys, there's a possibility, I think I've mentioned this already, maybe on the NAS100 you could see price crashing, you get a test of this and you get the sell. So look at this long-term move. There's two possibilities here. You get price coming back to an area like this and you're looking for the buys again. I think on this we're looking for maybe a 1:10 or maybe a 1:9, and the reason it's a 1:10, there's a potential for a 1:10 on a pair like this or on this buys, is because it's a continuation move. So continuation moves always take out those highs, making new highs, testing the next psychological level and stuff like that. So you should get a good return when it's a continuation move. Now once you have the sells coming in, which is a temporary move, you might have the return on this might be less. So that's what I'm looking at on this pair. So this is one possibility, and another possibility, again, an inability for this to happen, you could see sellers coming in. So this is something I'll pay attention to as well. So you could see sellers coming in from an area like this, and if this happens, we're taking prices again to the next psychological level, which is this area right here. So you have something like this. So you need to look at price from both directions. And again, it's very important for you to do the market focus thing. You do the market focus not because you want price to deliver the way you want it to deliver. You're doing the market focus thing just so you can look at price. You have an anticipated move. If price does something else, you're already ready for it, you're prepared for it, and you know how to counteract the moves. So let the bigger boys do what they want to do. Like, let the big players do the thing. And you just have to look at price and ask yourself, what is the footprint this thing is trying to show you, and how can you get involved in a move like this? So we're currently starting these sales. I'm going to look at this on the 8-hour time frame. Cool. So we have this and we're looking for the buys. I'll put this on the daily as well. So we're expecting this buy. So this is what I'm expecting right now. So a movement to an area like this, an inability, you could see price coming back above this area, and we'll take the buys again to the upside. So let's modify this. Let's make it look clean. So let's see, you have a movement thing like this. All right, so the modification doesn't give you 1:10, that's fine, but let's see something like this, maybe 1:8. All right, cool. So that's something I'll be looking for on the S&P500. If it happens, then that's fine. I'll take those buys. And again, look at the sales, see how the sellers are coming in. It's very impulsive. So you're looking at this move, this is an aggressive move from the sellers. It's similar to this move right here. So in a situation like this, you want the sellers to come in aggressively. You want to see those sellers bounce enough to a point where there's that inability for them to sell aggressively. So you want to see something like this. You want to see that movement. Once it slows down, then you can take the buy. So you're looking at this piece right here. You could expect the same thing to happen and for you to take the buys. All right, guys, so that's it for me on the S&P 500. So let's look at the next and the last pair. All right, guys, so the last one is gold. And so again, remember, I have this weekly time frame just as a reference to see if there's any violation I'm expecting on the daily time frame. So the first time frame we look at is daily time frame. So put this on the daily time frame, and remember, I had a loss on the sales on gold. So let's look at this on the daily time frame. Now this pair has been on a bullish run, like a crazy bullish run. So if you guys remember, I had my best buys on this around an area like this, and we took out these highs, and I think that was about 1:12, or no, 1:11, but I think I capped this out at around 1:9. So that was a very good trade right there. And remember, the continuations is always going to take out areas like this. It's always going to take out these highs, and its target is to the next psychological level. So the problem is, can you hold these trades for this period of time? So if you're looking at this movement thing, if I held this position, I'll have been holding this for almost 63 days or 62 days. That's a lot to do. So unless you have a good capital, if not, you want to go in and out so you can get payouts and stuff like that. All right, cool. So let's keep this here and let's do a quick analysis on gold. So where is price headed to? Price is headed to 3,000. So we've been saying this for the longest time. Price is headed to 3,000. How is price moving? Is there a psychological level you can work with? Is there a trend line? So this is how your price is moving. There's a pullback, there's a swing move, there's a pullback. Now this is not the daily time frame move. So this move right here is not a daily time frame move. That's most likely a move on the 8-hour time frame. So on a daily time frame, I consider there's a swing move, there's a pullback, and I consider everything as a swing move. So if we get a test of 3,000, you should expect prices to sell again to this trend line. So that's a sell I'm going to wait for, and if it comes in, I'm going to take it. Now you're looking at these buys right here. So how do you analyze something like this? Ask yourself simple questions. What psychological levels are you looking at? So in a situation like this, I'm paying attention to 3,000 and I'm paying attention to 2,500. So price went through 2,500. We didn't even get a test of 2,500 and price is headed to 3,000. How do you get involved in a situation like this? Step down to lower time frames. Let's look at this on the 8-hour time frame. Is there a trend line you can put to guide the movement to the next psychological level? So we had this trend line right here. So this trend line is what we was looking at. So we had this trend line and I had this minor trend line, I think, on the hourly time frame, this one. So we had this trend line on the 8-hour time frame and I had this minor trend line on the lower time frame. So what I was expecting on this was a violation and a test of this area, so I can do another buy again to the upside. So this didn't happen. Once I saw prices around an area like this, so I saw prices around an area like this, knowing there was a violation of this trend line. So I was then expecting prices to sell to this area, an inability, so I can take prices again to the upside. The principle remains the same. You have a psychological level, you have trend lines. So keep your principles like fairly easy, like don't use very complex structures or very complex concepts. Every now and then you're going to take losses. I take losses every time, so it's a normal thing, but you need to be consistent with the way you're looking at prices. So the psychological level thing we're headed to is 3,000. An inability of a price to go through 3,000. We're expecting prices to then pull back from this area back to an area like 2,500, but there is this trend line thing. So if we're taking sales, we're looking at this area as a potential area where we might get difficulties. So now this is on the 8-hour time frame. How do you get involved in a situation like this? Price is currently sat at an area like this. You might say this is a consolidation and stuff like this. Is price going to move to 3,000? Yes, because that's a bigger picture thing. But in the meantime, how do you get involved in a situation like this? Is there a possibility where you can still take the sales to the downside? An inability, so you take the buys to the upside, or do you sit on your hands and wait for price to move to this area so you can take the sell? So how do you get involved in a situation like this? Looking at this on the 8-hour time frame, it's very difficult for you to tell because this piece of price action is very condensed and it's not showing you like the structure moves within that price action. So it's very difficult for you to look at this and making a decision. So let's look at this on lower time frames. So the 4-hour time frame, for example. So here's my anticipated move again. I was expecting this sales to come in. So sorry, I was expecting this sales to come in to an area like this so I can take the buys. It didn't happen, so I'm gonna take this out. So let's keep this out right now. So what we're looking at now, if price stays around an area like this, if there's an inability for prices to drop down, you should expect the movement thing to the upside. Now I'm expecting the DXY to move to the upside, so I'm still expecting a further move again on gold to the downside. So let's look at this on the hourly time frame. I think it makes more sense on the hourly time frame. So here is what I'm looking at on gold. So pay attention to this. So we've had this massive movement thing to the upside, and you can look at it. There was a trend line thing, so you could see price making higher highs and higher lows, higher highs and higher lows. You had a violation thing, price moving to the downside. So first of all, you have these highs right here, so price has to test these highs, and that's why you're still expecting a movement to the downside so you can buy. So price has to test these highs, and there's a possibility for price to go to 3,000 because you're looking at the bigger picture thing. Now pay attention to this piece right here. We had this movement to the upside. There was an impulsive move to the upside, Yes, we had a violation and I was expecting temporal sales. So I'm still going to expect temporal sales, and this is how I'll get involved in a situation like this. So price is currently moving to the upside. It's just a minor movement thing to the upside. We have this highest created right here. So an inability for price to actually move to the upside. So an inability for price to take out this area and continue on moving into the upside, I'll expect sellers to come in. So we'll take out this area first, and most likely there's a trend line right here. You could see the sellers coming in. So looking at this move right here, let's make this cleaner. So price is moving to the upside. Let's say there's an inability for price to move to the upside. I'm expecting the sellers to come in. I'm expecting sellers to react, so we can take those buys again to the upside. So I'll be expecting something like this, a movement thing like this on gold. So I'm still like, if gold gives me this possibility where there is this inability for prices to move to the upside, it's similar to what's happening on, is it NAS? No, US30. So this is it. So look at this structure on US30. So you had an impulsive move, you had a violation thing, there was an inability for prices to move to the upside, and you're expecting a delivery to the next trend line. You look for the pivot point and you take prices again to the upside. So when you look at gold, it's the same thing. So you have an impulsive move right here, there's a violation, an inability for prices to take out this area. You're expecting a delivery to this area, so you can take buys again to the upside. So that's what I'm looking for on gold. So all I have to do, so let's move this a little bit further. So let's move this to the corner right here. So put this on 3000, keep this right here. So this is still going to take time, so I'll just put this right here. This is going to take time, but let's keep this on the chart because that's a movement thing we're expecting. So if you keep this, so hold on, let's look at this trend line thing from this time frame. So I'm just going to take this higher, so let's put this right here, something like this. All right guys, so this is what I'm expecting on gold. So first of all, I want to see this inability. So I want to see an inability for prices to move to the upside. So I'm waiting for this inability right here. If I see the inability for price to move to the upside, to take out this area, which is this highs, an inability for prices to move to the upside, I'm expecting the sales to come in. Once you get sellers coming in, an inability again for sellers to take prices to the downside, you're looking for the same thing. You're expecting prices to move to the upside. So this right here is my analysis on gold, and I'm still going to attempt the sales on gold. Trust me, if I see the DXY moving to the upside and I see this inability from gold to move to the upside, then I'll look for those selling opportunities. So let's play this as a scenario thing. So we have this piece right here, so an inability for price to go through this area. You're expecting a movement thing like this, so something like this. So that's it right there. So I'm gonna keep this on the charts as well, and we can look at this next week. So it makes it completely easy. It's not a complex thing, but this sells right here, it's always very difficult taking these sells. So the sells right here, it's always very difficult taking these sells because the structure right here sometimes is a little bit very complex, but this is something I'm going to pay attention to. An inability for prices to move to the upside. I want this sells to an area like this so I can take the buys. Now if the DXY moves to the upside, I'll be very confident taking those sells on gold, but again I need to wait for my setup to happen. I need a setup thing within an area like this. So it's the same thing will happen on I think US30. So we had the sales coming in, but around an area like this I didn't get my setup to take this interest. So it's just the same thing I'll look for on gold. If I get the setup, then I'm going to go in for the sales, then we'll look for the buyers. And again, gold has been proving me like completely wrong this past weeks. So sometimes I'm expecting the prices to sell so I can take the buys, and you come like Monday and Tuesday and price just moves to the upside. So price can do something like this, and again it's completely okay, but I have a structure thing I'm expecting. I have a setup I'm expecting. If I see my setup, then I'm going to trade it. Now if the setup doesn't happen, I'm not gonna trade it. I'm just gonna sit on my hands and wait for the next possible one or the best opportunity to get involved. So that's it for me, guys, for this week. And I think we've gone through all the pairs: NAS, US30, S&P, and the DXY. So make sure you watch the previous week's focus and the other ones as well, so you can get an understanding to what we're doing, the levels we're paying attention to, the trend lines we're working with. You can copy these trend lines and put in your chart and watch how price is playing around those areas, and just follow along, tag along. If you have any pairs you want me to look at, drop in the comment section. And again, guys, be patient with what you're doing, stay consistent, and see you during the next one. Bye for now.